The project is a project to promote knowledge sharing, and really what I believe makes it unique is that it focuses on languages in the education sector, but not only in the education sector, also in the media, public services and spaces, and business. So it really pulls together all of these categories. Who's involved? The project receives funding from the European Commission. It sits within a category which is called Lifelong Learning Programme. We're quite a big project. The duration of the project is 3 years. We're now in the 2nd year, and we really are at an exciting part of the project where all the research has happened, and now we are launching the results in each of the participating countries and regions. So co-financed by the European Commission under this Lifelong Learning Programme. It was a project that was initiated by the British Council. The idea really came from the British Council, and people often ask why an organisation that promotes Britain and the English language got involved in a project on multilingualism. I often get asked that question as well as the project manager of this project. The answer is very simple and I believe quite clear. The British Council is a cultural relations organisation and firmly believes that cultural relations cannot be carried out by imposing a language on other nations, but by accepting difference, by communicating, and multilingualism is at the core of those values. So really the idea of cultural relations sits very comfortably with the idea of multilingualism. There always is a reason why there's always an agenda also for a country to get involved, and the UK really also is facing issues and challenges to multilingualism in its current situation. Under the Labour government, the policy changed, and from secondary education onwards, it no longer became compulsory to study foreign languages. So from 14 years onwards, students can choose whether they carry on learning a second language, whether it's German, French, or whatever else that could be. And the number of students of foreign languages has dropped drastically over the last year. So really, the UK partner, the languages company, and the activity going on an equal level to the way it's presented here in Lithuania, is also dealing with its own issues that they wish to change, and again re-highlight the importance of language learning, which in a country like Great Britain becomes an even greater challenge because they have English as a base, and therefore often feel very comfortable that that is enough, but of course it isn't. Below that you can see a quantity of logos. There are actually many, many more, because overall we work with representatives from over 30 partner organisations, 1 to 2 partners per country involved. The logos that you can see underneath are a selection, because those are the partners that sit on our steering group that have been guiding the process very closely since the beginning of the project. At a glance, they include important organisations like the Languages Company in the UK, Migration, MPG, Goethe Institute, Tilburg University, who carried out the research, Instituto Camões, Instituto Cervantes, FIGED, of which we also have a representative in the room, and we will hear later. It's an organisation in Poland. So really, it's a project that is quite challenging because it's working across many countries and with many partners. What makes it unique is that we're trying to bring these people together in dialogue. We also have some sponsors. They include Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, and Rosetta Stone. Cambridge University Press will co-publish our final publication, which will come out in December of this year and will be published in each of the participating languages. So it will be available in all the project languages plus Turkish and Arabic. This is another thing that kind of makes the project not only challenging but also unique, is that we are providing all the information in all of the languages of the participating countries. So, what are the project objectives? To facilitate the exchange of good practice in promoting intercultural dialogue and social inclusion through language learning and teaching. A core aspect of the project is also to promote European cooperation in developing the policies and practices that make up the activity. Not only across the education sector, but like I mentioned, also broader society and the other segments. And another really important aspect is to raise awareness of the European Union and Council of Europe recommendations. The European Union has many papers and documents in place. They're constantly changing. They can be accessed through the European Union website. And really it's about highlighting these policy papers to the population at large. And you'll see later how we devised a tool that very closely links to EU recommendations and how countries can measure their levels of multilingualism against the different factors that the European Union highlights as important. We believe that it's kind of timely at this time because the European Commission has been reviewing the work done over the last 3 years. So we felt it was timely to do some research of our own to highlight not only the policies but also the reality on the ground in all these countries participating in the project. And not only to present the research results but also to start some discussions on the ground, and that's why we're excited that we're doing these launches, because it's really the starting point of the discussions that will happen at the local level. So why language-rich Europe? Just some few statistics from the Eurobarometer. 84% of Europeans believe that people should be able to speak more than one language. In comparison to that, quite interesting that only 44% of Europeans 44% of Europeans say that they cannot hold a conversation in any other language. So that statistics, in a way, surprising. I think it's quite a high percentage. One finding that we found through the project is that 83% of European businesses use language skills as a factor in recruitment. So there is a direct link, as mentioned by our introductory panel as well, that in this globalized world, job prospects increase at a large scale with the knowledge of languages, and to increase Europe's competitiveness, but also to be able to work and find employment in today's world, speaking languages is core. So, what do we do? Language-rich Europe provides a commentary on current language policies and practices. There has been a lot of research carried out in this first section of the project, and we are now presenting to you the findings of a publication. You'll receive this during the first, probably tomorrow, first part of tomorrow. If not, you will receive this publication later. It's also available online, and through Vilma we'll show you where you can access it. Trends in language policies and practices in Europe. It's an analysis of language policies and practices through our network of experts. There was a consultation period, and now we're coming together for these events to present the facts. This is the front cover of the publication. It's a draft for consultation. It will result in the final book published by Cambridge University Press in December, but we will take you through this as I go on. Who is involved in the research? The key partner is Tilburg University in the Netherlands, the Babylon Center for Studies of Multicultural Society. They really created the methodology, the questionnaires, and they led on the research part. The data was complemented by research partners in each country who provided their own analysis of the findings, supported by examples of good practice and promising initiatives. So, what we have created is a tool for self-evaluation of policies and practices against these EU documents. We hope to desire follow-up research and conversation, and it's not the only study in this area, so we hope that there will be interest in comparing findings with other studies. The core of, I'm going to go on a little bit to explain the methodology of the research. One aspect that kind of makes this study unique, I would say, there are many studies about languages, multilingualism, was, but in this case, it really brought together this wide variety of language types and the different groups that were studied really individually. So we have national languages, which is seen as official languages of a nation state, foreign languages, languages that are not learnt or used at home, but it's your second language that you learn at school and use for wider communication, but also with importance in the non-educational sector. Third category are regional and minority languages, languages that are traditionally used within a given territory or state by nationals of that state who form a group, numerically smaller than the rest of the state's population, but nevertheless important. And immigrant languages, languages spoken by immigrants and their descendants, originating from the wide range of former source countries, so the international population that comes to live in a given country. So those were the categories of language that were looked at. We carried out the study, we call them language domains, of the different areas, and the different areas that we looked at were the following, as you can see on this slide. So the first category or domain were languages in official documents and databases. Then there is a section devoted to education, but broken down into pre-primary education, primary education, secondary, and languages in further and higher education, the university sector. And then three further categories, which are languages in audiovisual media and press, public services and public spaces, and finally languages in business. The first four domains were reported at a national level, which means that researchers provided answers on the basis of desk research and expert opinion. So we worked with carefully selected partner organisations, and all of this research was also carefully peer-reviewed at the national level. For the city-level research, a field manual was produced by Tilburg University, which gave instructions on how and guidelines on how to conduct that part of the research. So for the city-based results, which is really for the further and higher education onwards, audio, visual media, public services, business, there was this manual produced by Tilburg University, and it was a questionnaire and email correspondence with city authorities as well as desk research. The data on business was collected through questionnaire and telephone interviews. The sample used for each domain, so we had in total 69 higher education institutions, 65 universities. In the public services and spaces across the whole project, 63 cities participated, and in the business sector overall, 484 companies were surveyed, and the four sectors that were chosen were the banking sector, hotels, supermarket and construction. We would like to highlight that from these results, it's not, especially from these results on these sectors, it's not possible to generalize about individual countries because the sample is not large enough. Yet we do believe that overall we can get valuable insights into trends across Europe. So these are the countries surveyed. It's kind of a large group of countries. Not every country is represented across Europe. It's an EC project. Countries need to apply to be part of it, so you do need a network and resources of conducting the project. So in our project, these are the base countries that are actively on board and participating in the project. Within those countries, there are some slightly more complex countries because we also surveyed regions. The regions that were surveyed include in Spain, Catalonia and the Basque Country. In the Netherlands, a separate profile was created for Frisian in Friesland. And in the UK, because the situation is also complicated, regionally there were separate profiles created for England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. In Spain, there was city level in Madrid, Seville and Valencia, as well as, so there's a separate profile which is Spain overall, with these cities, Catalonia, Basque Country. What's this, you'll probably ask? This is an example of the kind of profile we have created for each country. And I just wanted to briefly talk you through it. I was hoping that you would have the book in front of you, but you will receive that a little bit later on. It doesn't matter. I just won't spend that much time on this, but at least a little bit of time. I'll show you how this will look in the book that you'll receive as well. But just so that when you're confronted with this visual image that you don't kind of think, what is all this about? They are a colourful visualization. Each domain, pre-primary, secondary, and so on, has a different colour. So the colours really don't mean anything, they just differentiate the domains. At the top, you can see the columns. Those are the language types. So you have the immigrant languages, foreign languages, regional minority language, and additional support to national language, or in this case, national language. This is the example from the Italian version. On the first column, on the right-hand side, you can see the individual questions that were asked in the questionnaire. And then you can see these round balls. Some of them are coloured fully, some of them have only a medium-sized colouring, and some are left grey. You're probably asking, what on earth does that mean? The key makes it quite clear. The idea is that the more fuller the ball is, the closer in that question they come towards EU Council of Europe recommendations, and the less colour there is means that there could be more work done, and it's kind of less towards EU recommendations. You can see very clearly the questions that are asked down the side and the options that refer to each question. Like I say, I think accessing this document yourself and having a look at the findings will be much more interesting than looking at this slide, but I just wanted to highlight the visualization. So you'll receive this, this booklet, abridged version of the findings for Lithuania. Just once you look at it, it's been written by Hus Ekström, Kutla Jagmor, one of the sections by Marley Swinkles. They're all from Tilburg University, and there's part one, which takes you in a very detailed way through the methodology, and part two, which pulls out cross-national findings. And then there is the Lithuania country profile, and that's where the results are presented across all the domains with the visualization. I'd like to highlight that these profiles will also be available online, and we'll soon be launching the new Language Rich Europe website, where all the country profiles will be visible and can be downloaded off the website as well. So that's that. As we've been launching in all the different countries, what's really interesting is the conversation that's created on the ground. We've so far launched in Switzerland. In Switzerland, I'd like to thank Vilma also for encouraging the use of the interpretation, because it's great to have the opportunity to listen to all these languages. In Switzerland, actually, they claim that they don't need to have an interpretation facility, that the audience is so multilingual that they just switch between German, French and Italian, and often in one conversation switch between the languages. And that really was the case. That, for example, the slides would be in French, but they would be speaking in Italian. One interesting factor that came out in the Swiss launch, for example, was that there's a danger of losing this capability of people switching so comfortably between the three languages, which was something completely normal in the past. And now with the younger generation, actually, it's German and English, and actually I only have a very small passive knowledge of Italian and French. So that was the focus in that country, and actually the idea that the Italian is almost being lost amongst the younger generation. The discussion in the Netherlands was also interesting when it was talking about the Frisian profile and how important it is not only to protect and recognize a regional language, but to actively promote it. And that's what makes Frisian kind of in that region a very successful language, because they do put a lot into active promotion and investment, both at the city level and education level. Another interesting point that came out for me in the Netherlands is how important it is to focus on the action radius of the languages you learn. How important it is for Dutch people to learn German, because the neighbouring country is where the business happens, where the education exchanges can happen. So that was an interesting food for thought. I think I'll leave it there. I would just like to highlight that, just one more minute, that what's still to happen with our project. We're having these national workshops now, national launches now. In each country we will then have national workshops. In Lithuania, from the British Council, it will be Vilma leading on them, so I hope that you will stay in contact with her and get actively involved in these workshops. They're really the important groundwork activity that's going to happen, where the discussion can happen, where the perhaps improvement to the research can also happen, because it's a document in consultation. And we will be taking forward action plans. They will be discussed in a conference in London in December, which would also be great if some of you participated in that event. And then finally in March, the project as such will have a final conference in Brussels, where the recommendations will be presented to EU institutions. So that's a chance where some of the important issues from Lithuania can also be chaired and channeled upwards, because we are using these EU recommendations, so hopefully they will get much interesting feedback from all the countries participating. Thank you.